All right, boo. Happy Halloween, everybody. This special edition of the Chat with Gunner podcast, 157, and special guest, my friend Jason Rabine. We got it. That's it. Look at that. Nailed it first time. We didn't even practice it or rehearse it going into this. I just nailed that bad boy. Jumping on the show, man. Thanks for coming on, bro. How you doing?
Man, I am having a great day. Honored to be on. Talking fight game, freight game, whatever. Let's do it.
Dude, so yeah, you hit me up and you was like, hey, I'm going to the Jake Paul fight because you're over in the Phoenix area. Are you in Phoenix or Scottsdale?
Yeah, I'm in Phoenix. The office is in Scottsdale. I live in North Phoenix, and the fight was 20 minutes to the west of me. And it didn't dawn on me how close it was until I started seeing all my friends talk about going. And I thought, well, dang, man, how am I going to miss this? And, I'm more of an MMA fan than a boxing fan, but I'm a Anderson Silva fan. And when I realized he was going to be in the building, I was like, So, I put up a little somebody nudged me post on LinkedIn, and you and Hayden were like, dude, if you don't go, we can't be friends. And that was it. So we went.
Dude, well, great decision. I didn't tune in. Dude, yeah. I didn't tune in until literally the main event. We had things going on all day and watching football and stuff, but tuned in at the main event, paid the $40 or whatever it was. Everybody was asleep at the house. I went downstairs, watched the fight. Dude, here's my opinion from watching from TV.
Okay.
I thought Jake Paul was more active.
Yes.
I thought that it was an actual fight. Like, he got hit, he got pressured, and it was real. I thought Anderson Silva wasted too much time at the first part of the rounds and would come on strong at the end. Yep. But that wasn't enough in the judge's decision. And ultimately, when Jake countered him and knocked him down at the end of the fight, that was the fight. It could have been a lot closer on the scorecard decision.
Yeah.
But that was the fight. Jake Paul won that fight. Anderson knows Jake Paul won that fight.
Oh, there's no question about it. And the biggest takeaway for me was this legit? Were they throwing bombs? I can attest with every fiber of my being, those two warriors stepped in that ring and let it go. I was worried about Anderson getting knocked out early and kind of tarnishing his legacy a little bit. He stood his own. He did what he always does. And he's not the aggressor in the beginning of any round. Even when he's in the octagon, he's kind of that back and watch for your weakness and wait for the opening. Something interesting. I don't know if you caught this. 2 separate times he lifted his shin up like he was getting ready to check a kick.
Yeah.
And I got excited. I really wanted to throw a roundhouse. I was like, come on, man. I know it's in your DNA. Like, how do you separate what you've been doing for all these years to just throwing hands?
Right.
It was great, man. I was up close and personal. The replays were great. Both of them got some solid shots. Jake Paul was throwing haymakers, and he genuinely was trying to knock the dude out. And so, like, there was respect, but it wasn't the type of respect where they were going to go 70% and call it an exhibition. He was out there to drop him. Yeah. Was surprised at how slippery Anderson is, because there was some strong throws and whiffs. And that's when I knew, oh, he's throwing to knock this dude out. And it got real exciting real quick, man. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah. So now that was your first fight? Okay.
Ever. First exposure to anything live. I mean, I went to some wrestling matches when I was 5, 6 years old, and like, that's nothing compared to this.
Close, but not even close. Not really.
There were 10 fights in the crowd before the main event. These people were hyped. They were hyped. So the energy in the crowd was legit. As soon as they panned down to Nate Diaz, the place got live. From what I hear, Nate went to the back and tried to get into his dressing room, and they had a little scuffle and threw Nate out. Dude, my hero, man. I foresee Nate and him boxing, and I foresee Nate knocking Jake Paul out. I'm calling it right here, right now.
I don't know, man.
He called out Canelo too. Listen, he's legit, but I don't know if he can stand with the big boys. That's yet to be seen.
Okay, so now here's the question.
Okay.
Nate Diaz versus Anderson Silva, who wins that fight?
Well, I mean, even when Nick fought Anderson, it was both of them past their prime. If you put them both in their prime, Nate Diaz is going to sleep.
Like right now.
Nate Diaz is knocking Anderson out, dude.
Really?
Yeah, the way that Nate fights, he likes to get hit. The more he gets hit, the more he boxes. He's a dirty boxer. Nate's a boxer first. Anderson's got the black belt in jiu-jitsu, so he'll tap you and throw a heel kick at you. So while I feel Anderson's more well-rounded, I feel like My dude Nate's just gritty, man. He hit him with the little Stockton slap, and then here comes the left, right, night. So that's my opinion. I just like Nate. He's about his business, man. He's not about the money. He's not about the hype train. He's about knocking dudes out and going home, and I'm about it.
I mean, I like Nate. I'm definitely a Nate fan. I just
he brings a spark to the game, doesn't he?
He does. I just feel like he's lost a little bit of his I don't know, like his fast twitch power. Like I feel like he's lost a little bit.
Listen, he smokes copious amounts of pot and runs marathons. Like the dude is from a different planet. Something give eventually, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But like I said, he just fights for the fun of it, man. He's a pure fighter. He just likes to throw hands.
No, I'm with you. No, I like Nate. Those fights with Connor are some of the best fights ever to go back and watch.
If it wasn't first round the way in that first fight, you know, there was some blood in that second fight that was kind of funky, and I think it hinders his ability to really see what's coming at him. But he's been punched in the face so much that it doesn't take much of a knock to open those old wounds, and it's just, you know. But listen, if you're not bleeding, it's not a fun fight to watch, and Nate's always bloody.
Right.
Gonna give it his all. I feel like the more he bleeds, the better the fight is.
Do you think Conor McGregor would beat Jake Paul?
You know, I thought about that. I thought about that a lot while I was there, and I thought, what would be the fight? The money, that's the money fight for the fans. That's not a money fight for the sport. Conor's not a boxer. He was exposed when he fought Mayweather. He looked sloppy. Listen, Ronda Rousey was the greatest by far women's fighter ever until she fought a kickboxer, and she was exposed, and she wanted no part of Holly that second time, and then she just went away quietly. I think that's what's happening to Conor. The hype train for Conor was, you know, yeah, he slept Aldo, you know, that I'm gonna call that a little bit of luck, a little bit. I don't know who wins that fight. I don't think either of them get knocked out. Let me put it to you that way. I think that fight goes the distance and it's a scorecard decision, but I'm not here for that. I'm here to see who's going to sleep, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. If Jake Paul knocked out Conor McGregor, the world would flip on the top of its head.
Listen, but see, I'm such a conspiracy theorist. I expect that to happen so they could fight 3 times to make triple the money. But I don't want to see that. I want to see the 2 baddest men on the earth not fighting for trilogies. I want them to fight for those 15 or 25 minutes right here, right now. I'm the baddest dude in this arena right now. And the problem is everybody's chasing the dollar. So that's why I like Khabib. Khabib was about his business, man. That dude wrestled bears. He wasn't about his money. He was about just doing what he was doing, nothing else. And he got on her hype game and jumped the fence, and he slipped a little bit because he kind of he fell into the trap. But listen, Conor is a marketing machine. Jake is a marketing machine. This is Jake's promotion. It's his deal. The thing that threw me off about this, there was no swag. There was no merchandise anywhere in the arena. I wanted to buy a shirt. I wanted to buy something to commemorate this, and there was nothing. And so if there was anything that I could say there was a missed opportunity on, was branding, you know, and the promotional piece of it was zero on the backside for the customer and the fan base. So really? Nothing. I searched high and low. There was nothing. And if I'd have known that, like, I hate to say this, I'd have bootlegged some stuff outside the arena and sold them for $10 a pop and made a killing. But I didn't know what I didn't know, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's what we should do. We should go to the next Jake Paul fight and set up a vendor and set up shirts.
I'm sitting in the arena going, I'm getting paid this next one for sure. This man rolled in on a horse. I want to make a shirt of him on a horse. Like, there's so much opportunity. He gave me so much inspiration. I'm not a big Jake Paul fan, but I'll tell you what, after this fight and just the way the production was put on and the fan base that was there, I actually really like him now. It kind of over a little bit.
Yeah. I hated him at the very beginning.
Yep.
And then if you dig into Jake Paul and look at like him behind the scenes, him kind of like behind the camera, like his thought process into like building this machine that he's done. Yep. He called his shot 6 years ago. I mean, he's doing exactly what he said he's going to do.
The smartest thing he can do is keep chirping at Dana. It's free press. He keeps chirping White. I mean, money that they're making in these exhibition boxing matches, and let's call them what they are. They're professional fights, quote unquote. These are exhibitions because there's no real fighters. The fight before the main event were 2 legit fighters, and they were technical, they were tactical, They moved well, and that was out of all the fights that I watched, the other ones felt like a backyard Kimbo Slice fight, just kind of thrown together.
Right.
The four, I was like, yeah, here we go. And I'll be honest, I mean, Anderson looked good. He was combinations, moving, ducking, weaving. The knockdown was legit. He got caught square in the mouth, and it is what it is. And I wouldn't even call it a knockout. He just got knocked down.
Sure.
I saw that. I went, oh, that's enough. And I got up and started walking away because I just didn't want to see if it was going to get any worse.
Yeah.
I walked away with, my head over my shoulder going, what am I missing? But I just listened for the crowd. And as I walked out to beat the crowd, I didn't hear anything massive. And I walked away feeling good about it. I always thought they were rigged. I thought they were, a promotional. I could tell you right now, they're legit fights.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
So
awesome, dude. Well, hey, tell me your freight story. I mean, that's how this is all about. Like, when did you get into logistics?
So back in the day, my dad was an over-the-road truck driver. When I was 5 years old, he pulled up in his semi to pick me up from school, and he honked that horn for the first time, and I was like, "Yo, Pops, what is this?" So I thought it was like the coolest thing. He pulled up. I was in like first grade, and all the kids run to the fence. They're checking it out. I hop in over in the passenger seat. We drive home, and from then ever since then, I've had an affinity for trucks and cars. And as I got older, I went on the road with him one time, and I was like, "Yo, dude, this job sucks. You just drive around listening to country music all day, sipping coffee, smoking your cigarettes. Like, this is boring, Dad." And I swore I would never get in the truck. And so that ended my dream of being in the truck. And then when I got a little bit older, I went out on the road and learned how to sell door to door. I traveled across the country selling magazines way back in the day. And I learned the sales game door to door, which kind of led into everything else I've done. Bounced around, did some customer service, managed some call centers. And one day we were in Boston, where I was living at the time, and it was so cold outside. All my friends are here in Arizona. They're at Lake Pleasant. It's 80 degrees. I looked at my wife at the time, and I was like, what are we doing here? It's 12 below zero. This place sucks. So 30 days later, whatever we could fit in the car, and the dog and the kids, and our $1,000 in our pocket, we drove to Arizona. And I put out a random post, hey, moving to Arizona, anyone have a plug on a job? And one of my oldest friends worked for Alan Lund, and she recommended me for a job. And no word of a lie, I stopped at 3 truck stops and did 3 separate interviews for this job on the road on the way here. And I get into Phoenix. I go in, I meet with Matt in the Phoenix office, and he says to me, listen, we're not really looking for anybody. We're not, we don't have an active position, but we take a referral seriously. And I feel like there's room for you here. And he welcomed me with open arms and taught me everything about the freight game from Jump Street. And if you know Arizona produce season, it starts May 1st. I started May 2nd. So I cut my teeth in the 3 hardest months of the year. And I just found my niche. Like, I could talk the game. I'm an honest broker. I'm probably too honest to a fault, where I'll tell you straight up if it's nonsense and if something isn't going right or wrong. And I moved up to, from broker in training to broker, ops manager. And I gave so much to the freight game and that company in particular. It wore on my mental health. I wasn't taking care of myself. And at some point, it just came to a head, and I had to step away for a minute. And so I stepped away, and within 30 minutes of resigning my post, customers and carriers were on the phone with me asking me where I was going. And I never expected that. I had no idea that those relationships were as deep as they were. So I had no plan. I was just going to take 30 days off, go fishing, hang out with the kids, go, camping. And I told everybody, give me 30 days. One person called me back 30 days later at 8:01 in the morning, said, okay, are you ready? And I was like, I guess, what are we going to do? And he offered me an independent agent position from home. And I ran a cradle to the grave operation from my bedroom for 1.5 years. And I did $2 million in I did $2 million in revenue from next to my bed. And I killed it. And I thought, wow. And I learned everything I needed to learn about the other side of it, running it from soup to nuts. And, I did my taxes at the end of the year. And my tax guy goes, man, this is worse than having an ex-wife, man. You pay a lot of money to have a partnership like this. And while it was always an amazing partnership, it just got me thinking that, could I do this genuinely on my own? And I thought about it, and I thought about it. And one day I woke up and I just said, man, if I'm not going to bet on myself, nobody's ever going to bet on myself. And I just threw it against the wall. And I think watching a YouTube video about Floyd Mayweather, how he bought out his first contract and bet on himself and he became a billionaire. And that stuck in my head. Like, you have to bet on yourself. And I turned the switch on and I turned the switch off, and here we are. I've been in my own seat, my own company for about 8 months. The company's healthy. I've got 5 independent freight agents underneath me. So I run an agent-based model. And I just applied for my DOT authority to put a semi on the road, and we should have owner operators on the road in a fleet by early January.
Dude, good for you, man. Awesome.
I learned I wasn't a good manager of people. I'm good at what I do, but I don't want to be responsible for motivating and managing people. I want high leverage, alpha people that manage themselves, and I want to be their partner. So I looked at the agent model and thought, that's a much better model. They're their own boss. I work for them instead of vice versa. And so, the agents, they do what they do. I support them on the back end, and it's a great relationship because at the end of the day, if they don't work hard, they don't make money, and I don't have to feel bad about it. And I don't have any overhead there. So I mitigated my risk, and realistically, it empowers them to be their own boss. I want you to be your own boss. I don't ever want you to think of me as your boss.
Yeah.
The icky feeling for some, it's just not in my DNA.
So let me ask you this, because I've always wondered, like, brokerage, being like a broker or like an agent. 'Cause I got buddies that do both.
Yep.
I've got both in both games. When you own one, are you obviously doing the back end stuff, or you pay somebody to do the back end stuff? But are you also doing brokering as well? Like, do you have a book that you also operate, or do you pass that off to your agents knowing that comes back?
No chance. I built my core book of business and my core group of carriers over a decade. Nobody's touching that. That's mine and mine only. And I wouldn't trust, it's not that I don't trust, I just wouldn't trust anybody else to take care of those people that I've nurtured and cultivated over a decade to do it the way that I do it. Above and beyond isn't even the bare minimum for me. That's not a minimum standard. It's whatever it takes. And, I have a very low failure rate. I will say this, I don't take a lot of freight. I don't need to take a lot of freight. I take the right freight for our model. I'm not out here bidding on 6,000 lanes, praying I can fill all those trucks. I take what I can take. I don't even take spot freight. Like, I find that to be offensive to my customers. Hey, Mr. Customer, I could do this for you for the year, but right now I can get more if I don't take it at contract and you pay me more later. That truly is what creates the divide of the us versus them mentality. So while I'm out here, I'm still charging the rates to my customers I was getting last year when the market was hot. I'm still paying my trucks the same rate when it was hot. And so, it just doesn't make any sense for me to participate in putting my friends and my colleagues, if you will, out of business. That's my moral compass stops there. So no, I definitely run my own book 100%.
Okay. So how do you manage that, like, as far as your time? Because I'm assuming you have to do other things as well for other people, or do you have a staff that does that for you? I'm just trying to understand your model.
Say this out loud. Like, I almost feel bad saying this out loud, but I'm a work smarter, not harder kind of guy. I reverse engineered how the freight game works. I took all of my capacity. I went to all my trucks and I said, listen, this is what I do. You guys know this is what I do. How many trucks a year, per day, per week, whatever, can you give me? And then I went to my customers and I told them, listen, I'm not going to bid on X and pray that I'm going to tell you exactly what I can do, when I can do it. And you'll have a very low failure rate because I'm telling you it's a guaranteed set of capacity. So I get auto tendered, a week to a month at a time. I auto tender stuff to my trucks and it's on autopilot. I rarely have to look for an open truck. If something happens day of, I got to run out there and hustle, but it's very rare because of the core base of carriers that I use. There's always a guy around and there's always a guy around willing to help me in a bind and vice versa. So for me, I probably spend 4 hours a week actually working on the brokerage side. The rest is hustling up new business, looking for a way to generate revenue, learning everything I can about how to operate on the truck side, since I'm going to physically drive the truck. I'm not going to hire an owner operator without any truck experience. So I'm getting in a truck a couple days a week. I'm going to make a run. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to earn it, and I'm going to speak to it, as opposed to just, Google everything and pretend I know what I'm doing. The whole owner operator thing works if I know the business end better than them, so that they can just focus on driving the truck. And so in order to do that, I've got to go out there and learn it. So, it's going to be an interesting year. Next year is going to be a good year. I could feel it. I'm coming for everything they said I couldn't have.
Dude, first of all, I had no clue this interview was going this direction, and I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. No, that's awesome because, I think a lot of people think about doing that and want to do that, but they don't want to take the risk. And I know you said the Floyd Mayweather video is one of the things that made you want to take the risk, but also there's other factors as well. Is it family? Like what really made you want to be like, all right, listen, today I'm betting on myself today. This is why.
I'm gonna be fully transparent. I go to therapy. I'm a recovering alcoholic. The reason I drank for all those years was childhood trauma. You got a dad on the road for 28 days a month and a divorced, a set of parents and a stepmom that raised me as somebody who wasn't part of her family. So I always felt alone. I always felt like I wasn't good enough. I always felt like and when I put the bottle down and I started to reflect in the mirror about the man that I am and the man that I'm showing my children to be, I just started to gain this confidence that was overwhelming. And the thoughts of what I wanted to do became more of why am I not doing it? I just changed the way that I looked at, what was in front of me. I'd always had these ideas of, I want to do this. I want to do that. And then one day I looked in the mirror and I said, I'm 40 years old. What are we doing with the wants? Let's get it. Like if we fail, but we're going to fail forward. And the main reason to get in the truck, I'll be transparent. That's my retirement plan. I want to travel the country and be in the truck and travel. And that's if for some reason the brokerage, doesn't work out, which gosh forbid that's the option. I have a fail safe. I have a backup and I already have my own customer contacts and brokerage relationships. I can survive in the truck. I don't worry about being in the truck and making money. The freight game is changing so much with the technology and Convoy and Uber and automation that there's no telling where that's going to be in 5 or 10 years, but there'll always be a need for a dude in a truck. So you know what? I just kind of looked at it like, let's take the higher risk first with the contingency on the back end.
So smart. So simple.
Yeah. So simple. I reverse engineer everything. I look at it and I go, why is it so hard? Let's take the pain points and get them out of the way at first. One of the hardest parts about being a broker, do you have an asset? No, Mr. Customer, I don't. Well, I'm checking that off the list. There's no more that objections out the window. We're not even playing that game. Yeah. Like, I'm going to drive to potential customers and take a selfie of me, my truck in front of their facility. And that'll be my email to them. So they don't even have to question whether I have a truck. I was outside. We could have shook hands and had a donut. But you know what? I'm going to the time and the effort to show that I'm different. Anybody could send an email, man, and promise the world, but who's out here really putting in the work? That's what differentiates me.
I like that a lot. You're giving me a bunch of ideas right now. It's probably not a good thing.
Dude, I met up with Trey Griggs last week. I met up with Graham Gonzalez last week. I walked into Frank Vana. I walked into the Lions Den, man, and they treated me with the utmost respect and courtesy. And it just felt good to be amongst people that have the same cultural background. Yes, we are by definition competitors, but at the end of the day, we're all colleagues. We have to make the game better. And then it's up to us to see who's really going to end it, be there at the end of the day, but we don't need to knock each other down.
Oh,
to me, there's so much divide between the carrier side, the broker side, and the customer side. I'm tired of carriers complaining about brokers. So you know what? I went and bought a truck. Now you can't tell me I don't know what it costs to run a truck. Sure I do. And I'm going to do it successfully. And I'm just going to educate people on knowing their numbers. Just because you can get a CDL doesn't mean you know how to run a business. And just because you can start a brokerage doesn't mean you know how to run a business. It's kind of silly that people go out and spend $250,000 on a truck, but don't know how to run a P&L. They had like on Facebook this morning, this lady came at me sideways. I said, ma'am, this is a real simple argument. Show me your business plan. She goes, well, I don't have one. I said, what are you doing in business? What was your strategy? You didn't have a strategy, and now you're just complaining about anything that you can. Do something about it. And the other thing I said to these guys who say, well, we don't need brokers. It costs $5,000 or less to get your brokerage, up and running. Put your money where your mouth is. Why did you get in trucking instead of brokerage? Why don't you start a brokerage while you're in trucking? Like, be about it. My post on LinkedIn this morning is you can't bitch your way to the top, but you can inch your way to the top. Yep. I'm very pointed at why I say what I say. But I draw inspiration from the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm here to change the game, man. I'm here to change the stigma for the brokers. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're a broker. Dude, man, it's tough out here.
Yeah, and people, when you do good at a certain thing, like, or you have a little bit of success, people are like, oh man, being a broker is easy. It's like, listen, bro, selling yourself to a customer that can get that service from anybody else in the country or
Sure.
out of the country is pretty difficult
Yep.
because you're literally doing nothing different. You're getting something from point A to point B, maybe a couple more points along the way, but that's it. And there's a transaction that takes place.
Yep.
So why would they want to work with you?
Man, I'm very unique in the way that I attack customers. Okay. So, for example, Gunnar, if you were my potential customer and I knew we were coming on this podcast, I would have sent you a bobblehead in your wrestling outfit as a swag gift along with my swag gear.
Keep going.
Yeah. Tell me you have one. Yeah, buddy. I would have sent you that. It would have said, I would have sent son. Now we're talking. I would have sent you one of those, something different just to get your attention. Anybody could send an email, but if you invest a little bit of personalization, that gets them to go, wow, I get 10,000 emails a day. They don't even spell my name right. It's grammatically incorrect. This man put a stamp in the mail and had a thoughtful, approach. All I need is for your attention. That's all I need. And if I could get your attention, these are my words. I think outside the box. If you need a freight partner that thinks outside the box when the box is shrinking, I'm your guy. If I'm not, call every other big boy broker out there. And when they feed you that vanilla, promise you the world and under deliver stuff, I'm about my word. I'm going to tell you exactly what I can do. And if something happens, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to fix it. No BS. But like I said, I don't take spot freight. I find it offensive. And the things that separate me are getting your attention. And then when I get your attention, the way that I service you, I set the bar so high and so different. Why would they want anyone else? You know what I mean? Like it's not, you just have to look at it creatively.
Yeah. When you were doing it in your house, you said you did $2 million.
Yep.
You were at your house. Was that in 1 year, like one calendar year you did 2 million, or was it?
Now that was 12-month year. I did 2 million in brokerage.
Just cradle to grave, you're out there humping it.
Listen, it was during the pandemic. The rates were bananas. They were favorable. But
Sure.
for example, the main lane that I run is Arizona to Utah, right? I've run that lane for 10 years. I used to run 3,000 loads a year in that lane and that lane only. I know that lane like the back of my hand. Last year, guys were getting 3, 4, 5 grand. I was charging 2,400. I was paying my trucks, 2 grand, 22. And guess what? I'm still charging 2,400 and I'm still giving my trucks 20, 22. The market's like 1,100 in that lane right now. But you know what? I'm not going to participate in putting my guys out of business. I want them to grow and expand, make sure that their maintenance is right, be safe, be happy, be healthy. And my customers don't have to worry about why their loads aren't getting picked up or are their loads safe. At the end of the day, if their loads don't get delivered, those POs get canceled and the customers on the back end of them, they lose revenue. So I'm in a very important piece. And I try to explain to the people that will at least listen why it's important to pay a fair rate and why it's important as a broker that I pass that fair rate on to the truck. I'm not overcharging and underpaying. I'm undercharging and overpaying. And I'm okay with that. And that's why my trucks will bend over backwards for me. And that's why my customers, when I ask for something, I get it. It's not difficult. It's about being a man of your word. It's about having a little bit of integrity, a little bit of spunk, but it's also about communicating why. You can't just tell a customer rate and go, well, why won't you pay that? You got to educate them. And so I learn every single day. I try to spend as much time as I can learning what I can, what's going on in the market, watching podcasts, talking to trucks. I talk to my drivers every day, whether they're on a load or not. What are you hearing out there? What are the challenges? What's coming up I need to know about that I'm not hip to? And by the way, how are the kids? Did your son win his football game yesterday? How was that wrestling match? Like, it's not transactional, it's friendships. And, most of the guys that come into Phoenix, I pick them up, we golf, we get burritos. I'm very hospitable. I don't want it to be a phone only, email only situation. Like Trey came in last week, for example. I wasn't going to go to the conference, but I'll be damned if I was going to not meet that man. So I picked him up from the airport, took him over to Chris Jolly's house, got to shake Chris's hand. I would have never been able to do that if I was just an email, hide behind the phone kind of guy. I took advantage of an opportunity. I forged a friendship, and it is what it is. And guess what? They remember the 30 minutes in my car to where they were going versus the 30 seconds every dude at that conference tried to chirp at them. That's the differentiator. You have to look at it from the big picture. So, Dude, I love talking freight, man. I can talk your ear off. So if I'm just chopping it up too much and you need a minute to interject, just let me know.
I always say, man, I give 20 to 30 minutes, but every now and then maybe you might need to get a little bit longer. So we'll just continue the conversation.
Part two, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm about it.
There will always be a part two. So here's a question for you, and I wanted to ask this to the last guy, and I think I did, and he didn't have like a great answer for you. It was Curtis. He didn't know the answer. Like he couldn't pull the memory. But do you remember your first customer? Like when you first became a broker? Do you remember getting your first customer, your first load?
I remember my first load. Yeah, it was a Coca-Cola load from Tempe, Arizona to it went to Great Falls. No, not Great Falls. It went up into like Wyoming, somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
And the way that the office was structured is everybody just kind of did what they did, and the new kid worked on the hard freight. I lost $2,600 on my first load, and I went, oh Lord, oh boy.
Yeah.
And I covered the freight, and every broker in that room came over and high-fived me, and I was like, this is ass backwards. I don't really know how I'm supposed to feel about this, but I was in the trenches grinding. And you know what? I covered it, and it was about covering it for the customer, not so much the loss. But I was willing to do the work everybody else. It wasn't sexy. I was willing to do the dirty work. And it taught, that very first load taught me, be open-minded about this. You know, like there's something here. And yeah, I mean, nobody wanted to go up into that area, and people were asking $5-6 grand. Dude, we were billing like $1,200 in fuel. I took a banger of a loss, and I was almost embarrassed to put it on the board. And my boss bought me lunch, and it was like, great job, Jason. And I was like, all right, let's go. And from then on, I stopped looking at the number. I looked at the transaction. And then from there, I looked at the big picture. You're going to take your bumps, man. You're not going to win every wrestling match. You're going to lose. You know, life is a lot like sports. You got to take your lumps. It's about learning from the lumps. So yeah, that first one, I went, oh man, I'm gonna get fired. Jeez, what just happened? And it's different. The freight game's different.
It is. Do you remember your first customer, like getting your first customer?
I'm gonna be honest. I was handed a legacy customer. It was Pepsi. A colleague of mine stepped down, and they handed me a national account. Dude, I sat in that seat, and I was born for it. I grew that account year over year, over year. And we went from 500 loads to 1,200 to, by the time I left, we were doing 3,000 loads a year out of that account right off of my desk. And as an operations manager, I refused to let go of the account. So I was still booking trucks. I was still hands-on. I didn't know any better. I felt like if I let off the throttle, I'd lose the touch. And as a manager, you always want to be in the know. And I felt like if I stepped back, I'd lose that edge. So it was probably to my detriment too, because I was brokering and managing. That's tough.
Yeah.
But the relationship piece, like I said, meant more to me. That was more valuable to me as a human. And yeah, I mean, so that first customer, I was so afraid. I was like, man, this is a big account. It's a national account. What if I mess up? And you know what? I just put my head down. I did my best. And I remember the very first day I took over, I sent a bulk email list to every carrier who'd ever done those loads. And I blind copied it, but people can tell that it's not directly to them. Like 5 or 6 dudes called me out. They called me up and said, what are you doing offering my freight to other people? And I realized, oh man, I got some learning to do. So then I cultured it into, all right, where's my A tier guys? Where are my B tier guys? And then where's the rest? And so that's kind of how I learned that the A tier guys, that's your squad, that's your A team, and the guys coming off the bench are valuable, but they may not have enough capacity to really satisfy, or they're only here seasonally. So, I learned some things. I was humbled those first couple of days, but once I got it, I put that thing on autopilot and I drove the bus, man, right across the finish line.
How many people did you have working with you on that account?
Nobody. I was the only person that handled it out of the whole West Coast. There were 3 people in the company that handled Pepsi as a whole, and I handled the entire West Coast.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. Now I had brokers covering, freight around me, but I covered the majority of it. I scheduled appointments. I was forward facing to the customer. I was forward facing to the trucks. We had an on-call schedule every couple of days. Somebody was on call. Son, let me tell you, I was on call 24/7. My phone's still ringing. I'm available for everybody and anybody except for 1 hour a day. When I take my kids to school, I turn that thing off. And the people who know me know if I don't answer the phone during that time, that's my This is my son and daughter time. We're jamming out to Taylor Swift, getting Dunkin' Donuts, talking shop. They get out of the car every day and they say, I love you, Dad. I say, go be a legend today. Go be legendary. And, you know, hopefully one day it'll pay dividends.
Man, so you never watched Entourage, did you?
Dude, I watched maybe the first couple episodes.
What?
I grew up in LA. I was a child actor, dude. I could show you my headshots. I was born in Hollywood.
Okay.
I understand the Los Angeles culture better than most. So I wasn't as enamored with it because I lived it. Like, everything's so fake. I know it was written based on Mark Wahlberg's background. He's one of my all-time favorite human beings. But like, just the gizmo and like the hustle and that's not my style. I didn't want to fall into that trap. But there's a lot of value in watching that show. I will tell you, there's some stuff in there you can learn from. But no, I didn't. That wasn't something I watched from beginning to end. No.
I got you. I love Entourage. That's probably because I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, though. Definitely not Hollywood. So
I grew up in LA. My favorite shows are like Breaking Bad, like the real gritty stuff, like kind of hustle. You know what I mean? Like, there's just there was value in that because I came from the street. I was homeless at one time. Like, drugs were a problem when I was 21 years old. And so for me to watch that and watch it come full circle, there's a lot of parallels to that. And then you look at where I'm at today, and I'm just like, man, this show is wild, man. It speaks to me. So I'm a diehard fan of Bryan Cranston. I think he's a stud. I've probably watched Breaking Bad 20 times, dude. I know that's nerdy.
I've watched the first few episodes several times. I've never went through the whole thing.
Dude, it'll change your life. It gets like, it's one of those shows where each season get better and it doesn't get unrealistic. It just, the writing of that show is fantastic. And there's so much pain and there's so much grit and truth and tragedy. And I don't know, it just was relatable to me, you know, based on the way that I grew up, I related to it. So, you know, I'm drawn to that type of stuff because that's more real life. Like, Entourage is a dream for the 1% of the 1% in Cali. But if you've never gone to Cali, you don't know that. I'll give you an example. Like, people go to Chinese Grauman Theater where all of the premieres are. 10 years ago, that area was popping. It was full of, you know, knickknacks, and it was catered to the people coming into town, you know, the tourists. Right now, if you go to Chinese Grauman Theater, on one side of the street is homeless people who have taken over Hollywood Boulevard. Some of the most famous places, like the Wax Museum, the two-story McDonald's, the OG Hustler store, they're closed down and boarded up because homeless people live there. But across the street are tourists taking pictures of this thing that's not even real. And so the juxtaposition is it's all fake. It's all for show. And, you know, if I grew up in LA and I moved when I was younger, if I stayed in LA, I'm going to tell you right now, I would have died at 20. And I'm fortunate that I was able to get out of a place that I was really good at being at so that I could become the man that I'm supposed to be. So every day is a good day, man. I'm very fortunate. Like I said, I'm too blessed to be stressed. I got these beautiful babies. Life's good, man. Life's good. Listen, I had hair 10 years ago when I started in freight. I don't right now. This is my only complaint. I used to have hair, man. Freight stole my hair.
So my dad's 70 and he's still got a full head of hair, just turned gray like a few years ago. So I feel like I'm okay, but definitely, like, there's a couple gray, like, random hairs in my beard. I'm like, that's 100% freight, 100%.
Now, like, yo, it is what it is. But you know what? This is my boots. These are my boots. You know, Dad's boots were dirty and grimy because he put in work. These are my boots right here. So you can look at me and tell I know what I'm talking about. I'm not some dude off the internet who's like, we're gonna make $1 million this year on YouTube. No, man, I've been in the trenches for a minute. Like, I put in my work, and I'm proud of it. You know, I'm proud of what I've done. So you see my LinkedIn post. I say I wouldn't say controversial stuff, but I say stuff people think but don't dare to say. That's the differentiator. It's not offensive, but the big box, you know, brokerages send me messages all the time like, man, why are you telling people this? Why are you telling people this? Because I'm coming for your customers, because your customers need to know. If you do it the right way, you ain't got nothing to worry about. But if you're shifty, I'm going to expose it. And I don't do it in a way where I call people out by name. It's situational. You know what I mean? And there's a fine line there, but I'm going to stand on that line. You better believe it.
Dude, I love this. I'm glad we did it. Let's stay in touch. Got your number. Let's keep chatting it up, and let's do this again. Maybe more than again.
Love the show, brother. Love your content. When I first started on LinkedIn 6 months ago, I circled 3 people that I wanted to jump on. Your podcast, Trey's podcast, and Chris Jolly's. and I'll be darned if I'm not on all 3 by the end of the year. So you know what? Winner, winner, chicken dinner, buddy. We're doing it.
I appreciate it. Hey, last question.
Yep.
Somebody new getting into the industry, a sales rep, or somebody just trying to get into brokering, cutting their teeth. They wanted the job. What are you telling them?
Go work for a big box brokerage. Learn it from the inside out. They're good at what they do. They'll teach you the whole thing. This isn't something you could just jump in and like, you have to understand things that I never knew before. Like, if you could sell, you can live in this space, but not fresh. There's no easy route. Go learn everything you can from the inside out while being paid to do it. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't a side hustle. You can't learn this on the side while you throw papers. Go put in your work, put in a little bit of education, make contacts, because that's really the in is the contacts. And just do it the right way so that if and when it's time for you to leave, those people want to come with you. You know what I mean? That would be my advice, is go put in the work, operate with integrity, build a base, and then pivot.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I worked at a company called Lipsy Logistics. I think they're actually trying to get out towards that way in the West Coast over in Phoenix. But anyways, large company. I called it Freight University for me because I learned absolutely everything there. And then when I left on great terms. Still love those people. Just went and visited with them last week, and all is well. I can still learn from those guys, and now they look to me almost as an equal instead of just an employee. And life is great, man. It's fantastic. But you do need to go and learn the right way to do something.
And the thing is, you have to pick the right brokerage. I'm not going to say who and who isn't, but you have to do your due diligence about the reputation. I was fortunate enough to work for Allen Lund. They are an incredible organization. They're ran from the top down, from the family. You are not treated like a number. They treat you with respect. They welcome you into their homes. The culture there is fantastic. And so I was fortunate to learn it the right way. I could very easily see having gone a different route and developing some not so, morally correct habits. So I was fortunate.
Sure.
So I also say, be careful who you're learning from,
Yep. Yeah, I guess a lot of people could have a bad experience in freight if they get in and get their own boss or their own company.
Yeah, I mean, depending on your comp structure, if your comp structure is, a certain way, you cut corners because that's how you get paid. If your comp structure is black and white and it's for the best of the customer and then the company and then you, instead of you first, you're not cutting your own colleagues down at the knees for that extra load, that extra $50, and I see and hear a lot of it. I pay attention to a lot of this stuff. And, like, one of the things I do is I pay my carriers in 48 hours. I quick pay them in 2 days, no charge. Why would I hold your money for 20 days, 30 days? I'll get my money on the back end. You keep operating, because if you run out of money, you run out of business. I lose my trucks. I lose my customers. It makes no sense. And so nobody's out there quick paying their trucks in 2 days. They're using it as a revenue generation machine. That's your money. Go do what you got to do. There's no reason for me to hold your money. Right. So just a small, give back to the carriers, trying to do my due diligence and eliminate the stigma that all brokers are due to. Not all brokers are built different, my friend. And if I'm still standing, I'm going to keep shouting that from my soapbox.
Dude, I love it. Hey, let's get you back on here. Appreciate you, boss. Hit me up. Man, we had some comments. I missed them. Anyways, we'll go through.
But no, hit the heads up, dude. I appreciate you. Love you, brother. Anytime you want to do it again, just let me know. I'm there.
All right, man. We'll see you, boss.
Have a great day, buddy.